Well, after that little episode, I've lost faith with the electronics in this vehicle. I've decided I'm going to have to go to hobby grade. I've got a brand new 2.4 GHz radio system in a box which I bought for a speedboat. I've got an ESC in my Ford Focus, and I hope I can find a servo. I have no idea how I'm going to physically connect the servos to the steering linkage in this vehicle, which is very inaccessible, and that's the main reason actually why I haven't wanted to do this. This then is my Focus. It has a 380 sized motor in it, and when I upgraded it to hobby spec I only had a 550 speed controller, all brushed. So I put a 550 size speed controller in it. I have since bought a 380 speed controller for something else, and my plan is to whip the body off this, nick the speed controller, fit a smaller 380 speed controller, which will be fine for this anyway, it's a nice LRP one, and then on a Satisfied I'll be able to carry on with the drag truck. So the Focus has its new LRP speed controller installed. The big old one's on the bench. If I can get this out of here, we can bring in the truck. Right, let's have a look at this truck. All these horrible electronics. Oh, it's quite spacious without them. Okay, I'm going to turn the camera off, cut a few wires and get back to you. One great thing about these toy grade RC cars is the battery access from underneath. I've always found it convenient, and I've just hacked a much bigger hole so that I can poke a 7.2 volt MOSFET plug through there and carry on using it. There's a fair amount of space now. I could have completely redesigned my cab if I'd known that I was going to end up doing this, but still. I've got to get this disgusting, strange 5-wire steering servo out. And the only other thing that interests me, or concerns me, is this. These are the wires coming out of the motor. Initially I'm going to try just putting power straight into them. If that doesn't work for any reason, and I have to get rid of this little lot, it means taking the motor out, which I really don't want to do. Let's see if we can get away without doing that. Now that I've removed its retaining clip, we can see the strange Chinese servo arrangement. The way it works is that this round part acts as a servo horn, engaging in this slot. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm sure I'll find a way. And now for the heartwarming part of this story. I was round at my friend Adam's house the other day. I told him I had a speed controller. I mentioned that I had a brand new radio I'd bought for my boat, and he went upstairs, got out his Tamiya CC01 and unscrewed the steering servo from it so I could complete my rat rod build. And I am appropriately grateful. Now of course I'm honour bound to make the thing fit. This is the radio I'm going to have to use, because it's the only one I have. It's just a cheap, I think it was about £28. And I pray it's a combo. Yep, there's a receiver. I've installed the receiver, the speed controller, and I left the original switch in place because the new one that came with the speed controller wouldn't fit. So I'm afraid, yeah, chocolate block. Still, apart from the chocolate block and the dodgy motor wiring, which I'm not even going to show you, I think we're okay to test. Oh. It goes forwards when you press forwards. This really is progress. Sadly though, it doesn't steer, but the servo works. My next task is to find a way to mount it. Well, controllable. No glitching. I think we're going to have to call this a tentative success. Okay, hobby grade electronics installed. I used the strange servo horn from the original Chinese servo. Some slightly unpleasant jiggery pokery to make it work. I haven't set the endpoints yet, which is why you see the servo straining. And we have a controllable throttle and glitch-free steering. Brilliant. It works again. There are, however, a couple of things I did forget to mention, which I've only seen now on reviewing the footage that I shot earlier. Firstly, there are these vertical divisions behind the driver's door. I did say I was going to have a single long side window, but it just looked too long. It looked like a letterbox opening. So these are actually just made of cardboard, the same thick pasteboard I used to make the back body. The other thing I wanted to show you is the means of body retention. I eventually discovered that the annoying gap which kept appearing was my own work. It was being caused by the front magnet. Eventually, determined to beat that annoying gap which has been plaguing me since the beginning of this build, I glued a small piece of wood behind the cab and drilled a hole in it so that I can poke a piece of wire through and bend it down as I've done here. I can always paint it so it's a bit less conspicuous. It's a lot less unsightly than that huge gap. This cutaway, which I cut in part 2 to clear the enormous protrusion on the last set of electronics, is of course now redundant. It is annoying. I could take the cab off and block it up from the inside, I suppose. The truck's on the start line. Over here is the competition. First there's the legendary 1932 Bugatti Monoposto powered by 4 firework rockets, then the Morris Minor with a 550 size silver cam motor, and the 1932 Coupe, which has a brushless 370. 3, 2, 1... Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Cool. Getting better at this, isn't he? 3, 2, 1, go. Oh! Gee!
Yeah, it's filming.
Oh shit! I'm gonna have to run and catch it. Oh, I think. Yep, I'm going to catch it. Yeah.
So you put it in reverse.
Right, I think we're finished with the minor. Next up, the drag truck takes on the Carisma. 3, 2, 1, go. Three, 2, 1, go. Oh mate, that's unfair. Three, 2, 1, go. Okay, we're going to have to pause today, aren't we? Because the drag truck's not playing. Is it because you go full throttle?
No, I'm not going for a circle.
Oh no, but I mean, does it cut out more when you go full throttle?
Yes.
Right, yeah. Okay.
Because I start off slowly, and then once I know I'm in a straight line, then I increase it. I don't just mash it.
3, 2, 1, go. Bollocks. I had steering issues. Why did the rocket car crash? It has adjustable steering, which, once set, is secured by a 4mm nut. This had come loose, and I think the steering just went to the left as the car accelerated. Why did the Morris Minor freak out? Was it a consequence of the collision it had just been involved in, or coincidence? I haven't investigated yet, so I just don't know. What about the drag truck? On the couple of passes when it was running well, and when my wife managed to contain the wheel spin and stay in a straight line, it did astonishingly well. It annihilated a four-wheel drive brushless Carisma, admittedly because I couldn't control the Carisma, not because the Carisma lacked power. But the point remains that it was easier to steer the drag truck in a straight line along that drag strip fast than it was to steer the Carisma, and the drag truck won fair and square. One little thing that didn't do too well was my bent wire body retaining system. However, I've gone into the same bits of 7x7mm pine, which I've glued behind the cab to the chassis on either side, with one of the screws from the servo assembly that I removed from this very truck. So why did the drag truck keep stopping under heavy loads? It turned out to be, ironically enough, because I had fitted a new, different LiPo for reliability. It seems that this plug is quite badly made, and that this wire displaces rather than have this force itself into the other socket. So when you plug them together, this thing was only just touching the very tip of the socket rather than being pushed into it. That last pass you saw, where this truck absolutely aced the Carisma, was running the battery from the Morris Minor. So, what does the future hold in store for the drag truck? I think it's pretty much proved itself. I'm going to keep drag racing with it. I won't be filming it very often unless I come up with more exciting cars to race it against. But there is one thing I'd love to do. I would love to see and to film it being driven in earnest by some skilled person around a tarmac RC racetrack. I think that would be a very amusing sight, though I doubt it would set a very good lap time. Okay, this has been a long build. I'm grateful to you all for sticking with me, especially as I've been emming and awing and not always knowing quite what to say. It's the first time I've ever filmed such a long build and done it unscripted. I do hope you haven't been frustrated by lack of detail or bored by my including too much detail. That's a balance that's hard to strike, I know, from watching other people's build videos. It's my first go. I hope you'll forgive me if I've bored you. I hope you'll forgive me if I've forgotten to say anything that you'd like to know. Just ask in the comments. Thanks for watching.